Hey folks, to get started, you'll need to clone down the CSS classes template in either Replit or Cloud Shell. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and pause the video, grab the code, and clone it down. I'll jump into Replit where I already have it open, and we'll get started. So far, we've learned how to select and style elements using the element selector method. So let's say if I wanted the body of my page to be a certain color, I would go to my style sheet and just use the word body. If I wanted to select and style the H1 elements, I would go to my style sheet and use the word H1. Now this type of selection is really useful if my intention is to always have every instance of a particular element be the same, but more often you'll find that you'll want individual elements to behave in more specific ways. And that's what we'll cover in this video. We'll show how to make specific elements behave in specific ways using ID and class selectors, and show examples of how to apply those selectors to a list of paragraphs. We'll start with IDs first, and when you click on Part 1 IDs and open it in a new tab, okay, and then click it again, Part 1 IDs, you'll see a list of 12 paragraphs. And where is this coming from? If I look here in the index.html, that first Part 1 was actually linked to the IDs.html page, so we'll head there. And there are 12 paragraphs on this page. Each one of them in the opening tag has been given a unique ID, and we'll need to select each paragraph using that specific ID to give it whatever designated color is listed here. To do so, we'll need to first check which style sheet it's been linked to here inside the head, and it's the IDs.css page. So we'll head there and open the IDs.css page up. And if I wanted to select the first paragraph and give it a blue text, then I could use the # and type the name of the ID. I'll just go back and check here. It was para1. Okay. So # para1. And then from here, it's basically what we're used to. My curly braces, and then we style away. So color blue, and then my semicolon. If I go back and refresh the page to check if I selected it by its ID and if it renders blue, and it does. So we'll go back and we'll have to do the same thing with all the other paragraphs. So we'll need to select and style the remaining 11 paragraphs using their specific ID. When you're done, it will look something like this, where you have selected every single ID and given it the color of the paragraph. And let's just check our code. And every blue paragraph turns blue, the red paragraphs are red, and the green paragraphs are green. So we did what we were supposed to do. But as you're going through this, you probably realize that this is a bit of a tedious process. And what would happen if we actually had a list of 100 paragraphs? We would be here all day. So even though using ID selectors gives us the freedom to be more specific, it's almost too specific, where it just doesn't make sense to use if you need to apply the same styling to more than one paragraph. Now, one way to work around this is to combine these IDs together as follows. So if both para1 and para2 are going to be blue, I could just separate them by a comma and also write para2. And I'll just comment this out. And let's just check if para1 and para2 when I refresh the page are blue. Great, so it works as intended. So this method of combining IDs together does clean up our code a little bit, but again, it really doesn't make sense to use something as specific as an ID if the same styling is going to be repeated for multiple p tags. And that's where classes are going to come in. So we'll go here, index.html, we'll need to run it again, open it in a new tab, and click Part 2 classes. Now, to avoid any confusion, go ahead and close out Part 1 for IDs, and we'll head over to the classes.html page. Okay, and we can close this up a little bit. And just like before, we have our blue, red, and green paragraphs. And whereas before they had an additional property where they were assigned an ID, this time they're assigned a class. And the beauty of this is that whereas IDs had to be unique, these classes can be repeated. And so for all 4 blue paragraphs, we have the class blue p, and all 4. I think there was one more. Yeah, all 4 of them. So let's go to our style sheet and take care of the red, green, and blue naming using class selectors. So it is linked to the classes.css style sheet, and that's where we'll need to go. And whereas before we needed to use a pound sign, for classes we use the period and then the name of the class. So I always forget to do this. It is blue with a capital P. It is case sensitive, and that's where a lot of students will run into errors. Blue P, and then we style away, curly braces, color, blue. And let's check just to see if this works, and if we manage to select all 4 of the blue paragraphs, and if they now render as blue, run the page, amazing. So all the blue paragraphs turn blue, and let's repeat this real quick for the red and green paragraphs. Okay, so it's red P, color red, and it's green P, color green. I'm noticing I forgot to capitalize this. Alright. Nice. The blue paragraphs are blue, the red paragraphs are red, and the green paragraphs are green. Now we can all agree that this method is much faster and more efficient than the version we had moments ago. And generally, if you're ever going to have repetition on a page, it's almost always better to assign it a class instead of an ID. Now, y'all may have noticed this when we were working with IDs, but there's these last 2 paragraphs that have some additional information. We need to make this one appear in a larger font and give this one a gray background. So let's tackle the larger font size. If I don't know how to do something right away, I'll always Google it and how to make text larger in CSS. Always include the language, it returns better results, and I'm seeing that there's a font size property that I could use. And there's more than one value that I could assign to this property. If you scroll down, they usually have some more information about these different values if you're interested in learning more. I like to open up the code editor to see how these values render the text. So this is what 15 pixels looks like, this is what large text looks like, and this is what 150% looks like. My personal preference is to use pixels, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to head back to my code. I'm going to create a class called Jumbo. And in here, I will put my font size property and set it to 30 pixels. And anytime I assign this class to an element, it will make its font size be 30 pixels. Now, does this do anything right away? No, because I just created the class, but I didn't assign it to any element. So I'll head back here to my classes.html page. And inside this paragraph where I assigned it a red P, I'll put my cursor and create a space, and this is where I will also assign it the class Jumbo. Y'all are noticing right now that we are not just limited to assigning an element just one single class. You can definitely assign it to more than one class. So let's check it out. Let's run our page. Nice. So now it has red text and it's also in a larger font. And I can go in here and I could also add this Jumbo class to any other paragraph that I want. Maybe I could make these next 2 red P's also Jumbo, and it works. So you can think of classes as multiple different adjectives or types that you can assign to any one given thing, and that's going to be a really good way to go about this. So let's just do one more class for this gray background color. Let's head to the classes.css page, and let's create a class called Night Mode. And in this class, we will assign a background color of gray. We will head to our classes.html page and give this, after the blue P, we will say night mode. Okay. Nice, so it's not the most appealing thing to look at, but we got the job done. It has blue text and it has a gray background color. Just bear in mind though that if you have multiple classes assigned to a single element, you'll want to make sure that those 2 different types of instructions aren't going to overwrite one another. So what would this look like? If I head back here and I make this blue P also a red P, what is it going to be? Will it be blue text? Will it be red text? Let's find out. In this case, the red P wins over the blue P, and there is some logic to it. But rather than focusing on why it's now red, make sure to be intentional about which classes you assign each element, and try not to give an element an assignment that requires it to behave in 2 different ways. So This wraps up our video, and I hope now you guys have more flexibility and freedom when it comes to styling, and you can now use element selectors, class selectors, and ID selectors as needed to get whatever desired look you want on your page. So with that said, have fun styling your web pages, and I'll see you on the next video.